Awesome. Okay. Since we seem to be all present and we're live on HCAM, we will begin the ESBC2 meeting today on Tuesday, February 25th at about 6:06 p.m. We have a pretty efficient agenda today, and it looks like we are starting with the approval of the meeting minutes from February 11th.
Public comment, we skipped over.
Sorry. Yep. If we have any public comment, it doesn't look like we have anyone. But if you'd like to talk, you can unmute yourself.
Would assume that's seeing none.
Good. Then let's move on. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. Is there any discussion about the minutes or edits necessary? Okay.
Madam Chairman, I'll move the minutes of February 11th as written.
Great. We have a motion to approve the minutes from February 11th. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. We'll do a roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Jagroot?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
Chris?
Yes.
And I have to abstain because I wasn't at the meeting. And I believe that's everyone. Am I
Shahadul.
Shadul?
I wasn't present either. Do you have enough? Then I'll abstain as well.
Yeah, we have enough.
Yeah, so 2 abstentions and 4 yes. So the minutes do pass. Great. I apologize. I have a new computer.
So the vendor invoice is up next.
Thank you. All right, so we have a vendor invoice. Would you share a bit more about that, Chris? Because truly, I lost my screen.
No, that's okay. I had just opened it and it crashed on me. So if you bear with me for one moment. Find it in my, there we go. Found it. So there is an invoice package. This is for the month of January. In the amount of $361,239.33. It represents invoices from Vertex, Perkins Eastman, Local IQ for advertising related to the pre-qual process, and Tie and Bond related to the permitting process. And throw the summary on screen so everybody can see it.
Motion to approve, Madam Chairman.
So we have a motion to approve the vendor invoice package for $361,239.33. Is there a second?
I second that. Is Shahidul?
Great. We'll do a roll call vote. So Chris?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
Jagroot?
Yes.
Shadul?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So that is 6 yeses, and that passes to approve. Next, we have the LSP proposal.
Yep. So this is probably the most discussion we're going to have all night. So lessons learned from our experience in Hopkins. When you do a construction project, you try to the greatest degree possible, balance the site. And that means that as much dirt as you're pulling out of the ground, you try and spread it on the surface so that at the end of the day, you don't have to export any dirt. Ideally, we would be able to do that, but given a lot of the level changes that we need to deal with a sloping site, we do have a certain amount of export. There's almost 8,000 cubic yards of a mix of loam and subsoil that will have to be exported off-site. When you export soil off-site, you have a chain of custody that links that soil back to you. And so to use a permitted facility to export that landfill, you would need to have someone sign off that that soil is clean, even if there's nothing wrong with it, to ensure that it is going to be accepted at the place that receives it. If you were to just say give it away and someone later finds something in that soil that creates some issue for them, they can trace that soil back to you. So we find quite often with municipal clients and university clients that they don't want to expose themselves to the risk of just giving the soil away or having the contractor figure out how to deal with it. We hired ADS at Hopkins to deal with this on a much smaller site. And what this represents would be what's called characterizing the soil. They will go in with an excavator and they'll take samples of both the topsoil and subsoil. They will evaluate to make sure that it falls within the MCP. I can't remember the
Okay.
what the acronym stands for, but it's essentially the Massachusetts publishes Massachusetts contingency plan. They publish in the state regulations how much of what substance is considered normal within soil. And so below that level, you don't have any special treatment. Above that level, it escalates the degree to which you need to deal with things that are in the soil. From our experience at Marathon several years ago, we did find some things in the soil that needed to be treated slightly differently, but not an extensive problem. So we provided that information to the sub-consultant ADS, and they provided us with this proposal. What this proposal entails is a review of the background information that we provided to her. She would do what's necessary to do test pits to sample the soil in various locations to meet the soil that would be removed. She carries the services for the laboratory and the backhoe operator in order to do that sampling. And then she would also produce the shipping documents in order to provide to whoever the trucking courier to the landfill is to ensure that the soil is accepted by the landfill. There is the risk that you identify something that is above that MCP level. And in that case, it just generally changes who can accept the soil, and you would then need the licensed site professional, which is what ADS is, in order to generate the paperwork for that higher amount that you need to deal with. So lesson learned from Hopkins, we think that this is a valuable service that would be useful. We think by approving it tonight, we're going to push to be able to start this as soon as possible. And what we'll likely do if we can't get this in the bid documents, we'll carry some unit prices so that if we exceed those MCP levels, we would at least know the unit cost that the contractor would use to deal with those levels. In total, ADS would be a sub-consultant to Vertex. And so with the contingencies that are included in the proposal, which includes if we need additional testing, because some landfills require more testing than others in order to deal with the soil, there'd be a $9,500 charge. And if we need additional laboratory testing because of what we discover, there would also potentially be another charge. And so both of those are covered as a not to exceed amount. So the total of ADS's contract would be $37,300. And with the 10% contractual markup, we'd be looking for approval of $41,030 for the motion tonight. A lot of that is contingency, and this would be a not to exceed contract. So in the event that we don't discover anything major and we're able to get by with the 1 per 1,000 cubic feet testing that is outlined in the proposal, at that point, there'd be no issues and we would own it in the bid that way. The contingencies come into play if we can't take it to one of those facilities. There are more than 3 of those facilities, so we can put in the bid specs that the testing will be based on taking it to those facilities. And so the contingencies are really there if we find something unexpected on the former farmland. So with that, I'd open it up to questions.
Given how close we are to the Marathon site, you had said that there was something in the Marathon soil that they had found?
We didn't have, they did find some. We did provide that testing data to Andrea so that she could put together the proposal. I don't know the exact particulars of what was found, but I think it was some elevated levels of in a limited amount that had to be treated differently when that soil was taken off site. And that's why you do this testing, so that you can know that up front and not get into a situation where you're paying for someone to move different piles of soil around so that you have to test it repeatedly over and over again as you discover things. That may still come into play, and if that does come into play, we would likely need the services of a licensed site professional anyway.
Chris, I have a question.
Yep.
I think the whole idea, I'm all for it. It's a good idea. I know Marathon, we did have the issues with the soil. We had to pay for that. I had one question about further on in their proposal under risk allocation. Essentially, it says that if they screw up something, their liability is limited to $50,000 for negligent professional acts, errors, and omission. Is that an industry standard? In other words, the potential for getting something really screwed up and having the town get sued later for way in excess of 50 grand is probably there. I just, it's like, I'm going to come do the work, but I screw up. You're only going to be able to get me for this amount. Is that a reasonable thing? If it is, fine. That's the only thing I question in the whole document.
The risk is relatively low. Generally, when Vertex signs up a professional services client or client as a subconsultant, we'll pass through. So the risk falls to the professional services. So if, for instance, if this was a geotechnical consultant, their professional liability would pick up the liability. The liability here to trace back to them would really be that their lab didn't do the testing properly, or that they didn't grab the activities that they're doing are not intensely full of risk. It's really they have similar other disclaimers in there about if they hit a gas line and it wasn't labeled, then you can't blame them for hitting a gas line. So I would say that's fairly standard from what we see in the industry. Dan, I don't know if your experience has been any different with LSPs. I thought Dan was on.
I am. I'm working my way back to that screen that you're on. You were way back in the screens.
It's down towards the end.
It was down towards the end. Yeah.
Risk allocation.
So yeah, what Chris is saying is true. They are all going to try to limit their risk. It's not unusual that geotech or anybody involved with any of this is going to do that. And ultimately, it is really just if they make a mistake, which in this case I think is pretty low risk. I mean, ultimately, you guys own the soil anyway, and you own the disposal of it, and you own what's in it, right? So it's really just a matter of they make an error, have an error, then that's when it comes into play. But I don't.
It's hard to quantify what those errors would actually be, because they're pulling the dirt out, they're putting it in a jar, and they're saying it's a random sampling of 1,000 other cubic yards. So if that
it could be anywhere else,
turns out to have something, but they had tested this one corner of it, they're still meeting the standard of care.
I understand. I just needed some reassurance that 50 was a good number and it shouldn't be 100 or 150. So I'm okay. Just that was the only question I had, sir.
Are there any questions for discussion?
I had a question along these lines, but a little bit different actually, which is, for my understanding, and I hope not, but I am in favor of the testing, of course. Should the testing results appear to be unfavorable, what is the impact and what would be the options potentially?
biggest impact really becomes that the cost of disposal of the soil becomes more expensive. If the cost of the soil disposal becomes significantly more expensive, we would likely come back to you the same way that I think we did at the DD level and discuss and identify if there's certain places on site where we'd want to keep the soil. We have a fairly large site, so we may identify places where we can create berms or create other site features with the excess soil so that we don't have to take it off site. And we would do an analysis at that time of whether or not the cost to move around and place that soil is more than the cost to dispose of that soil. But that would be a problem that we would encounter either way because we stumble upon something that we aren't expecting at this time. And the only way we would discover that is with testing like this that we would likely need to do anyway.
Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you for the clarification.
I had one clarification question. I'm in support of the services, but just wanted to make sure that the analytical data that's collected, would that be provided to the bidders? That's the intent, correct?
That is the goal if we can mobilize and get someone in the field fast enough. I think where if I could do this over, I probably would have started this 4 months ago because it ended up being a very frozen winter, and I'm not sure I would have been able to do this testing if I had started it 2 months ago. The goal would be to get her in the field and get those results as quickly as we possibly can. I was unable to confirm that timing with her. If we cannot confirm that timing, the second approach would be that we would describe in the documents the testing approach that we're going to use, and we would likely ask them to carry unit prices for disposal of soil above that Massachusetts standard, and we would have them own. Basically, they would give us a unit cost for the delta between how much it costs to dispose of it when it has a contaminant versus how much it costs to dispose of it if it was below the standard. And so they would then own disposal of everything below the standard, and we would only pay for the quantities that were above the standard.
Okay, yep. So you carry 2 cost items below and above MCP. Yeah. Okay.
I would assume at this point, Chris, we'll do a unit price for this.
Yeah. That seemed the most straightforward way to do it if we can't have this information available in advance of the bid.
Even if we do, we won't have it characterized across the entire site. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to have it no matter what. Okay.
Is there any other question or discussion? So at this point, we are looking for a motion to approve a contract with ADS Environmental Engineering not to exceed $41,030
Through Vertex.
through Vertex.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Perfect. Is there a second?
Second is Shida.
Perfect. So we'll do a roll call vote. Chris?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
Bill, I think you're still there.
He had 20 minutes.
All right. I see his screen. but
Uh,
I don't see. Okay. Jagroot?
Yes.
Shadul?
yes.
And I am also a yes. So that's 5 yeses. So that does pass as approved.
And the I didn't write it down. Was it Mike made the motion?
Yes.
Yeah, Mike moved the motion, right?
And the second was,
Shahadul.
Shadul.
thank you. Okay, the last item will hopefully go fairly quickly. Months ago, I forgot to look up the date when it was formed, but we established sometime in October a pre-qualification committee. Pre-qualification is required on projects that are over $10 million. The pre-qualification committee submitted a request for qualifications out to various, both for advertising through through the Central Register, put it out there to request qualifications for people interested in bidding in the project. as it related to the general contractor and the identified filed subtrades that would be bidding the project. We received a significant number of responses. I think we had 8 general contractors and well over 90 filed subbidders. The pre-qualification reviewed the qualifications of all of those firms, and the state mandates a point system is used. And so using that point system and an agreed upon scoring system, we established the contractors that we felt were qualified to bid the project. From that, we ended up with 6 general contractors, 6 masonry contractors, 7 metals contractors, 7 waterproofing, damp-proofing, and caulking contractors, 9 roofing and flashing contractor, or I'm sorry, 7 roofing and flashing contractors, 9 metal window contractors, 8 glass and glazing, 7 tile, 6 acoustical ceiling tile, 6 resilient floors, 3 terrazzo contractors, 11 painting contractors, 9 fire protection contractors, 8 plumbing contractors, and 7 HVAC and 4 electrical contractors. We did solicit elevators twice, and both times did not receive anybody interested in being pre-qualified. So that will move forward under the standard rules of filed subbidding. The pre-qualification committee voted these recommendations on I believe the 12th or the 13th. I think it was the 12th, on February 12th. And so they voted to recommend that the ESBC accept the recommendation of the pre-qualification committee, which was composed of myself and Chris Kenny, Dan and Jessica Vavricek of Perkins Eastman, Mike Shepard, Susan Rothermich, and Tim Persons. We thank everyone for their efforts in going through this, because it was quite a lot of paperwork to work through. And ultimately, we would ask for a motion to accept the recommendation of the pre-qualification committee as outlined in the list of pre-qualified contractors.
Do you want me to restate that, Chris?
You don't need to. If someone would like to say so moved, then I don't think we need to restate it, but
Great. So moved.
Second.
all right, I don't know who got that one.
Sean Dool got it.
All right, we will
Almost the same, but I'll take it.
a roll call vote. Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, ma'am.
Chagroot,
Yeah,
Shadul,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So that's
And
5.
I'm still here. I'm a yes as well.
Oh, good. Bill, you're back.
Yes.
Awesome. So that's 6 yeses.
Okay.
So that pre-qualification committee, we accept their recommendations.
So we will notify, the next step is we'll notify those who were qualified and not qualified. And when it becomes time for bidding, we'll notify that we'll notify the pre-qualified contractors that the bids are available, and they'll bid it along with the non-pre-qualified trades.
Great.
And with that, I believe, unless I'm missing something, Dan or Chris, I believe that's everything we had for this evening.
Great. So that is the end of the agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
So a motion by me, or no, by Shadul, second by Bill.
Yep.
Perfect. Roll call vote. Chris,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes, ma'am.
Bill,
Yes.
Groot,
yes.
Shadul,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So we will adjourn the meeting at 6:30 p.m. Thanks so much, everyone.
Take care, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.